Today, January 7th, is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau. And this day is known as the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a time to remember the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust and the millions of other victims of Nazi persecution. 86-year-old Holocaust survivor Tova Friedman traveled to Poland to honor the 1.1 million people who were murdered in Auschwitz, saying, quote, "The world has become toxic. I realize that we're in a crisis again, that there's so much hatred around, so much distrust, that if we don't stop, it may get worse and worse. There may be another terrible destruction," unquote. Uh, there is so much we have not yet learned, and so much we are failing to remember. I'm going to talk about this more later in the show. Uh, there's so much noise and churn and news that we need to stay focused. Yes, we need to keep up with everything that is going on. Yes, we need to keep our eyes on what is happening in the day to day. But also, please let us not lose sight of what we used to believe in, what this country used to believe was worth fighting for, what we all have stopped, not all of us, but many of us, has stopped honoring. So many people in this country have become detached from this country's values that we are in a situation in which the people who fought against the Nazis during World War II are now perceived by those in power to be on the wrong side of history. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Mary Trump Live. Let's dive right in. Today, CNN and the Washington Post reported that Ed Martin, who is the interim U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C., as well as being one of Donald's appointees, has initiated an internal review of the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice's decisions to charge numerous individuals involved in the January 6th Capitol attack with felony obstruction. This charge stems from an Enron era statute and carries a maximum of 20 years in prison. The Supreme Court recently ruled that the DOJ exceeded its authority in applying this statute to these cases. Martin ordered current and former prosecutors who filed the charges to turn over all documentation, suggesting that some are now investigating the investigators, a long-standing thread of my uncle's. The prosecutor has requested that the DOJ attorneys provide relevant files and documents for this quote-unquote special project, which he described as a failure. Now, attorneys who oversaw January 6 cases worry that the DOJ, especially under somebody as corrupt and sycophantic as Pam Bondi, could pursue criminal or civil actions against them. Remember, the lawyers for the DOJ who were just doing their jobs to hold insurrectionists and seditionists accountable. And some are even having to hire their own legal counsel. Martin, if you may not know, is known for his involvement in Stop the Steal, that the movement which was the poisoned fruit of the big lie, and which was in part responsible for what happened on January 6th. And Martin's public support for Donald's mass pardons of January 6th defendants is something we also need to know about how objective he is. He's also successfully pushed to lift travel restrictions on Oath Keepers whose sentences were commuted. Okay. Again, as you know, one of the very first things Donald did after being sworn in last Monday was to pardon every single one of those who was charged, tried, and convicted for engaging in the insurrection and the attack on the United States Capitol on January 6th, 2021. This has raised all sorts of red flags. And today we found out that an Indiana man, a 42-year-old, Matthew Huddle, who was a January 6th rioter, was fatally shot on Sunday by a Jasper County sheriff's deputy after a traffic stop near State Road 14. Huddle had recently received a pardon from Donald for storming the U.S. Capitol, and he served 6 months in federal prison. According to Indiana State Police, Huddle allegedly resisted arrest while armed, prompting the deputy to use lethal force. The exact cause of the altercation and the reason for the attempted arrest remain unclear. Hopefully, that will all get sorted out shortly. And Huddle is the second pardoned January 6th defendant in recent weeks to face legal trouble in the very recent aftermath of the pardons. Another rioter was rearrested in Florida, I believe, on weapons charges. I just want to pause for a second because when I heard this news about Matthew Huddle, I had what I'm going to describe to you as an inhumane reaction that chilled me. And I think it's worth talking to you about because I have a feeling all of us are having moments like that. I'm not entirely sure that there's a word to describe how I felt as soon as I realized what I had done, but I definitely could say that I felt ashamed and I was horrified by myself. We really, really, really need to be careful. And I don't mean we need to edit ourselves. Um, you know, that's not the point. What we need to do is not have reactions like that because then we start to become like them. And if we become like them, what are we even doing here? I know it's hard. I I as much as anybody, I know it's hard. But we have to try. So, my apologies. And I certainly need to do better. Okay, so attacking? No, he's acting. Attorney General James McHenry dismissed more than a dozen DOJ officials involved in prosecutions of Donald Trump, stating he no longer trusts them to implement Donald's agenda. Yes, that sounds very objective and professional. Donald also fired, I think, as many as 17 federal watchdogs, including the USDA's independent inspector general, prompting bipartisan concern about losing key oversight of fraud, food safety, and disaster aid. Check out this clip.
In a move that has caused bipartisan backlash, the Trump administration fired government watchdogs from a number of agencies overnight. In a letter obtained by CBS News, the now fired Inspector General of the Small Business Administration said that he believes the actions taken are not legally sufficient.
He seems to be trying to throw a monkey wrench into the kind of any independence left on our governments.
Under law, Congress must be given a 30-day heads up, along with a detailed explanation about the removal of an Inspector General.
Okay. Firing inspectors general without following proper procedure and getting consent of Congress is illegal. Like, that's the kind of shit Richard Nixon pulled. It's illegal. There's no getting around that. And yet, when Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, was asked about it, he's like, yeah, it's illegal. What are you going to do about it? So we need to figure out, or Democrats certainly need to figure out, what to do about it. A sternly worded letter is just not going to cut it. Of course, the administration is also reversing previous equity initiatives within the USDA. Staff in that agency received an email demanding any rebranded DEI efforts be reported And related web pages, which include the agency's Equity Commission report, are now offline, and my guess is they will be permanently offline. Broader staffing shakeups under Donald's directives are causing unease among USDA employees as agency overhauls and workforce cuts threaten to impede core functions like farm assistance and food safety inspections. I don't know, considering we have a highly contagious bird flu going around, we might want to make sure that that agency can actually do what it's supposed to do. This week, Brooke Rollins was nominated as the new Secretary of Agriculture. And again, seriously hoping she at least understands the severity of the situation we find ourselves in. Yet another highly contagious and in many cases deadly flu is going around. We're hearing horrific news about ducks needing to be culled and eggs not being able to be used. And eggs are getting more expensive. Who would have thought? This afternoon, Florida legislature defied Governor Ron DeSantis' immigration agenda, passing key legislation despite his opposition. Take a look. No, we're not going to take a look at that. Sorry. Psych. Sorry. Anyway, I did want to say one other thing about DeSantis, though. He is, because he has the permission to, going hardcore on immigration. And I've been seeing on Twitter a lot of people saying, can I just have flood insurance instead? So again, the misuse of government by these people is really, really troubling. And of course, it's happening in states that need the most help from the federal government when they get in trouble. All right. Unfortunately, as we've talked about before, Kristi Noem was sworn in on Saturday as Secretary of Homeland Security. Pete Hegseth was sworn in on Friday, January 24th. There are several more confirmation hearings this week, including a Russian agent and Vladimir Putin's girlfriend, Tulsi Gabbard. Her hearing is set for January 30th at 9 a.m. I believe we will be streaming that. According to news reports, Gabbard faces significant scrutiny as she seeks to join the Senate Intelligence Committee.
And another contentious confirmation coming up this week for Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. Her critics pointing to her lack of experience in intelligence. She's also made statements in the past blaming the U.S. for the war in Ukraine. And in 2017, she met multiple times with now ousted Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad and voiced skepticism that Assad was using chemical weapons against his own people despite overwhelming evidence from the U.S. Some Republicans even questioning whether she should oversee the 18 intelligence agencies and the $100 billion budget that comes with that role.
Earlier today, I discussed the Colombian President Gustavo Petro yielded to Donald's demands to accept the planes of immigrants headed towards Colombia because Donald threatened to impose tariffs on our number one trading partner. However, I think it's important that we take a second to discuss just how much this actually affects companies in our country. See, Colombia had become an attractive manufacturing option for U.S. companies, particularly among trade tensions and with other countries and pandemic disruptions, thanks to its closer geographic proximity and more affordable production costs. The Minnesota-based medical equipment company MedSource Labs exemplifies this shift, having reduced reliance on China by establishing a factory in Cartagena. Costs there are roughly within 10% of China's, but shipping times are much quicker and supply chains are much less vulnerable to global upheaval. Now, while Colombia narrowly avoided new U.S. tariffs, the ordeal underscores how Donald's use of tariffs as a policy tool injects volatility into global trade, forcing companies like MedSource to stay nimble in positioning their manufacturing. Also, by the way, it's a really bad way to treat an ally. So, a senior administration official pointed out today that Donald's brief tariff threat about Colombia is proof that he sees it's his responsibility to punish people, underscoring his readiness to apply them without prolonged talks. Multiple aides close to Donald are pushing for 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada starting as early as February 1st, dismissing the idea that Donald might back down from negotiations. Both Canada and Mexico, our neighbors to the north and south, have already taken steps to address U.S. complaints on deportations and border security, for example, but feel ignored by the still unconfirmed Trump team. And they fear that a looming trade war measures may spark a continental trade war. I don't know about you. This does not yet sound like it's going to lower costs or solve the problem of inflation. Canadian officials, for example, have drawn up lists of potential countermeasures, and provinces like Ontario suggest targeting critical U.S. exports like energy and power. Tariffs could disrupt industries such as auto manufacturing, where components routinely cross borders multiple times. Economists, of course, warn and have been warning all throughout the election of higher prices on everyday goods in the United States, possible recession in Canada if tariffs last, and a blow to Mexico's ongoing cooperation on migration enforcement, all fueling concerns about a tariffs first, negotiate later strategy. Because again, these people don't know what they're talking about and they don't know what they're doing. Okay, we've talked many times about what tariffs really are. Tariffs are taxes placed upon the American consumer that the American consumer has to pay. However, they also do affect the company that is exporting the goods that are being tariffed and will be taxed for the American people. Because by making, say, Colombia, for example, Colombian coffee more expensive, fewer people may buy it, and Colombia will take the hit. And of course, the price of eggs, not only has it not gone down, it's going up considerably. All right, on the home front, in an interview with CBS's Margaret Brennan on Sunday, JD Vance, keep forgetting who he is, Vice President of the United States, was asked to comment on egg prices and inflation and the ongoing cost of living crisis. Here's what he had to say.
You campaigned on lowering prices for consumers. We've seen all of these executive orders. Which one lowers prices?
We have done a lot, and there have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices. More capital investment, more job creation in our economy is one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things that they need. If you look at our slate of executive orders, no, Margaret, prices are going to come down, but it's going to take a little bit of time, right? The president has been president for all of 5 days. I think that in those 5 days, he's accomplished more than Joe Biden did in 4 years.
No, but all the things you experience at the grocery store are what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course, of course.
Those things, when do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Well, Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel's way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon?
How do we grow bacon? That would solve a lot of problems. If we could just grow bacon. Okay. I mean, look, this is the guy who answered a question about the danger of having so many billionaires at the inauguration by saying, hey, my mom was there. You know, you're never going to get a straight answer from JD Vance. He may be the second most accomplished liar in the administration, and that is really saying something. So also, look, they have no interest in fulfilling any of their campaign promises. And I don't think saying, hey, look, it's going to take a while to bring prices down is really going to cut it when you campaigned on accomplishing all of that on day one. Instead, what did we do on day one? We repealed a lot of civil rights era legislation that protected people. And oh yeah, Donald emptied the prisons of violent criminals, as he's always accusing Mexico of doing. All right, so let's zoom in on some news from the weekend. Donald's latest actions and reactions to his first week in office. Okay, so the New York Times article from January 26th reported the significant impact of redistricting on the 2024 U.S. congressional elections, highlighting key developments in several states. All right, in New York, after the 2020 census, New York lost one congressional seat. The state's independent redistricting commission failed to agree on a new map, leading the Democratic-controlled legislature to draw its own. This map was struck down in 2022 for partisan gerrymandering, and a court-appointed special master created a new one. In December 2023, the state's highest court mandated the commission to redraw the districts for the 2024 election. The legislature rejected the commission's proposal and enacted its own map in February 2024, making certain districts more favorable to Democrats. But I want to get back to how the initial map was rejected because it was accused of gerrymandering. Apparently, gerrymandering is only okay when Republicans do it in red states. All right, in North Carolina, which is a state we need to keep our eyes on for several reasons, following a shift to the Republican majority in the state Supreme Court in 2022, the court ruled in April 2023 that partisan gerrymandering claims are non-judiciable. This led the General Assembly to pass a new map in October 2023, placing 3 incumbent Democrats in Republican-leaning districts. What do you think that does to their chances of winning re-election? The map is expected to face further litigation after the 2024 elections, but it's hard to have confidence in anything coming out of North Carolina right now. In Ohio, after the retirement of a swing justice, the Ohio Supreme Court, now with a Republican majority, dismissed challenges to its congressional map in September 2023. This decision maintained the map previously established, despite earlier findings in 2022 that the legislature's district violated the state constitution. And finally, New Mexico, a lawsuit alleging partisan gerrymandering in New Mexico's congressional map was resolved when a state judge ruled to keep the current map in place. This decision was upheld by the New Mexico Supreme Court in November of 2023. Look, these redistricting efforts have significant implications for the political landscape, as they can alter the balance of power in Congress by reshaping district boundaries to favor one party over another. I mean, you'd have to look at some of how these districts are created just to see how extreme the gerrymandering is in certain, like, what's his name? Jim Jordan, the guy who never wears a jacket. His district looks like a Rorschach ink blot. I mean, it's absolutely absurd and obvious what is going on here. But here's another danger that we need to think about. When districts become so heavily gerrymandered in one party's favor, and unfortunately, it's usually the Republican Party, the election is essentially won in the majority party's primary. So you get the most extreme Republican winning the primary and then running in the general election against a Democrat who does not have a chance in hell of winning, and you get the most extreme Republican serving in Congress. This is very, very problematic, and yet again, another problem that Democrats need to find a solution for. Okay, I want to take a closer look at some of the ongoing debates surrounding DEI and abortion rights. Many companies like McDonald's and Meta, Target is the latest corporation to fall. Walmart are supporting Donald's DEI mandates, while some companies who actually understand how this shit works are taking a stand. Major companies like JP Morgan, Costco, and Goldman Sachs Sachs, continue to support DEI programs despite Donald's attacks. And also, I'd like to mention some airlines too, major airlines, Delta and American Airlines. The Air Force is in compliance with Donald's DEI orders by making changes to their training materials, which are to exclude women and people of color. Luckily, however, over the weekend, an Air Force official told CBS News, quote, immediate steps were taken to remove curriculum that is now under review to ensure compliance with executive orders issued by the president. This caused lesson plans that include videos of Tuskegee Airmen, groundbreaking Black pilots known for their service during World War II, and the Women Air Force Service pilots, or WASPs, the female World War II pilots who were pivotal in ferrying warplanes for the military. All this were temporarily removed from the U.S. Air Force curriculum. The lesson plans for basic training that have to do with diversity are to review to determine if they comply with an executive order from Donald that aims to end DEI programs within the federal government. But and look, let's take this to heart. After public outcry, the lessons have been restored to the curriculum. That's what we need to do. There are people who can be pressured into doing the right thing. All right. So last week, there was a controversial erection bill in Mississippi that intertwines abortion rights and contraceptive policies. This was just recently introduced. While DEI and abortion rights are major battlegrounds here at home, I want to turn to the international scene for a minute and see how Donald's foreign policy is continuing to disrupt world events. Because this is what happens when you put a toddler in charge. The Guardian reported today that Donald's recent suggestion to relocate Palestinians from Gaza to neighboring countries like Egypt and Jordan has been widely condemned. Yes, because it's contemptible and condemnable. Critics argue that such a proposal is dangerous and illegal under international law, as well as being impractical. I don't really care if it's impractical, but it is dangerous to the people of Gaza and their future. Both Egypt and Jordan have consistently rejected similar ideas, citing legal, political, and security concerns. And this stance reflects a lack of coherent policy and understanding of Middle Eastern dynamics. Check out this clip.
And I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing. It's over the centuries that's many conflicts that site, and I don't know. It's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished, and people are dying there. So I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing in a different location where they can maybe live in peace. Temporarily, or would they it could be either. It could be temporarily, could be long term.
Yeah, let's just clean them out, shall we? Listen, yes, much of Gaza has been reduced to rubble. And that is to our everlasting shame. But the solution is not to disperse the remaining population. The solution is, of course, to get in there and help them rebuild and provide them any assistance they need. Also, you know what would have been really nice? Not putting somebody in charge who's an idiot and knows absolutely nothing about Middle Eastern policy, Middle Eastern history, or the Middle Eastern people. Not surprisingly, because this is what it's devised to do, Donald's divisive comments have sparked backlash. Forcible displacement of populations is prohibited under international humanitarian law, not that he cares, and his remarks have been criticized by various international actors, including Germany and Arab American groups, as undermining credible Middle East peace efforts. Donald's comments reflect an absence of unified strategy for the Middle East. Of course it does, because he doesn't have one, potentially complicating relations with U.S. allies in the region. Overall, the proposal to relocate Gaza's Palestinian population has been widely condemned as dangerous, illegal, and unworkable. And critics argue that forced displacement would constitute a war crime and perpetuate the conflict. Look, Donald has never met a war crime or a crime of any kind that he doesn't like, so I don't think that's of any concern to him. But, much more importantly, it is a horrific idea that will further strain relationships with countries in the Middle East. In other international news, and this falls under the category of, see, this is a thing that can happen in a strong democracy. President Yoon of South Korea faces indictment over martial law violations. International tensions continue to rise, especially as Donald re-enters the spotlight on foreign policy. But as we wrap up today's show, I want to take a moment to reflect on what all of this means for the future. All right, again, in a strong democracy, the people can hold their leaders accountable. America is no longer a strong democracy. We are a waning democracy to the extent we are one at all. And I think we see this in the sort of breathtaking damage, the extent of the damage that has been done in the last week. So again, let's keep our eyes on what other countries are doing. Let's keep our eyes on what's happening and not forget where we came from and how we got here. Before I get to our emotional support moment, I just want to remind all of you who might be interested in knowing more about the situation with Colombia that we made a fairly detailed video about that earlier that dropped today. So check it out because I think it'll really help fill in the blanks and get you up to speed on what's really going on. Okay, as I mentioned at the top of the show, today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and Birkenau. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, was in attendance, and he said this, quote, "We must overcome the hatred that gives rise to abuse and murder. We must prevent forgetfulness. It is everyone's mission to do everything possible to prevent evil from winning," unquote. Okay, how is this an emotional support moment? Well, it's for this reason. We have been here before, and we have pulled together, and I want all of us tonight to think about how many tens of millions of people fought with everything. Think about all the blood and treasure we spent to fight the Nazis in World War II. We can do that again, but let's do it before things get as dangerously out of hand and extreme as they did in Nazi Germany. Eyes wide open, people. Okay, another very full day, but because you guys rock and always make me feel better, I want to look at some of your comments and questions before we close. Okay. From CAM Research, according to a 2019-2020 National Agricultural Workers Survey by the U.S. Department of Labor, about 44% of crop farm workers in the United States did not have work authorization. This is true, which is why we deport farm workers at our peril. So, I think it's time for people to start. I have to be honest, I don't like appealing to people's self-interest because I don't think we should have to. Like, people should just do the right thing because it's the right thing. But, sometimes we do have to appeal to people's self-interest. We need to make it very clear to those who seem to have no problem about all these illegal deportations that they too will suffer the consequences of that. So thank you, Cam Research, for that comment. From Henry Rogers. Thank you, Henry. That's very kind of you. Very much appreciate your donation. From Suki56, I stopped eating eggs. Just saying. Yeah, well, I mean, I stopped eating eggs a few decades ago, so it's not because they were expensive, but I don't know if they're particularly good for you. I don't really know. Easy source of protein, so I kind of wish I could eat them, but it's going to get hard if you really like them. It's going to get harder to buy them because I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, and I lived on Long Island, sadly, for quite a while. And the very last duck farm on Long Island may have to close because they just had to cull their flock of ducks. So that's where that's heading. From Melon, great handle, Melon Frolic. The sad fact is, Donald believes that isolationism will restore U.S. hegemony. It won't. What we're going through is a death of the world order under which I and so many have thrived. Well, that's an entire show right there. Yeah, it is just, again, not shocking, not surprising, not breathtaking, but just the depth of the ignorance and ahistorical approach to geopolitics is it's not going to help. This is isolation. United States isolationism, America first, is going to make everything worse for everybody, especially at this extraordinarily critical time in human history when we are facing so many interconnected crises. Thank you, Melon Frolic. From Diane, please don't make it sound like Donald's threats won. The planes were turned away due to how atrociously those being transported were being treated. Yes, indeed, Diane. And that is something we discuss at length in the video that dropped on the channel today. But thank you for pointing it out here because it's true. This is also not just true of Colombia, but also true of Brazil. It is the United States has an agreement with these countries when returning migrants that they be treated humanely. And that is exactly the opposite of how the Trump administration treated these people. Okay, so I just want to thank some of our amazing super stickers and people throwing some money to the hat. Hazy Trippin' Daisies, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Suzanne G, thank you so much. Mariana, thank you again. I'm gonna keep saying it because it continues to be true. We appreciate all of you so much. William, thank you for that donation. It's not just appreciated, it really helps us. Thank you so much, Nadler's Kid. Same to you and everybody else who donates, and all of our super stickers, our extraordinary moderators for keeping this a place we want to be. Thank you so much to Mercedes and the team. Especially there is so much going on that that the task of sifting through and organizing and prioritizing the news, that's shocking. I mean, this is not an easy thing. So everybody needs to give all of them props for keeping this thing going. And again, thanks to all of you for joining us, everybody who's watching on Twitter, everybody who's listening to the podcast. We so appreciate it. That does it for us tonight. This is Monday, January 27th episode of Mary Trump Live. We will be back tomorrow. I told you. Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, every night, live, whether Mercedes likes it or not. I'm just kidding. She loves it. Okay, so that's it. We will be back tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern for the Nerd Avengers, and then back here at 6 o'clock. Lots of other videos dropping, so stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel. Click that bell so you'll be alerted whenever new videos drop. Like and share the videos. Follow us on the podcast platform you prefer. and also give the show 5-star review because it helps other people find us. That does it for us. Thanks, guys. See you soon. In the meantime, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.